Hey, Dave.
Good to see you, Mario.
We are live. Welcome to Magic Wizardry, and we're going to be starting our show very shortly. Well, in fact, it's already started, and we got the comment section. So if you're joining us, or if you just arrived, do comment in the comments and let us know who you are, where you're viewing us, and where you are viewing us tonight. And great to have you on the show. And tonight we are drawing back the veil, if you like, and we're going to be exploring that of the magic, paranormal, strange things, bizarre magic, storytelling, tales, and illusions. Or are they? Or is there a deeper meaning to all of this? Encounters with ghosts. Have you had an encounter with a ghost? Have you had an encounter with strange places that, if you like, freaked you out? Is there something else there? Are you alone right now? Well, we're going to be exploring some of these places, and I'm coming to you from a very magical place here in Glastonbury, which is a place of spiritual significance, and people from all around the world come to Glastonbury on pilgrimages, often seeking their inner self, enlightenment, and in some cases they're looking for paranormal experiences, looking for that which is strange, something going bump in the night. And welcome, Jeff. Good to see you. We have Jeff in the room. I'm getting voices from beyond already. There are voices coming to me from beyond the other room. What is the other voice in the other room saying to me?
Nothing. It's okay.
Aha, that was Veronica in the background. No, we got Jeff from Washington. He's coming as well, and we've got viewers in the room. Hello there, welcome. We are just about to begin this evening. You're in the right place. We're going to be exploring the strange, the unusual, tales of the unexpected. And yes, thank you. Yes. So I just got a message, and I was going to, and we yes. And so if you're in the room and you can see me, let me know where you're coming from and who you are and what part of the world. We've got Jeff, and he's coming to us from Washington and Washington State. And we've got a few other viewers in the room. And like I say, we also got the wonderful David Weatherly, who's in the studio, and we're going to be interviewing David. Well, I'm going to be interviewing, and you may have questions yourself. You're welcome to fire away and ask questions as the evening unfolds. I believe we have Drumore Magic. So I always get that wrong, Bruce, don't I? I do. I always get it wrong. Oh, wow, we got Veronica in the room, the voice from the other room. Yes. And we have wonderful guests, like I say, and we have Bruce Lish from Brooklyn, and he was another guest on another evening, and you can watch that live as well. You can watch the recorded section of that, in your own time. Great interview, great kind of exploring that with Jeff, with Bruce. So here we are, and no further ado, I'm going to bring our wonderful guest into the show, and we got Jeff here. Hello, Jeff. Welcome. And first off, where are you coming to us? What part of the world are you in?
Who's Jeff?
I'm getting myself confused there, David. I do apologize. I'm going to do that again. Let's do that again. I'm going back, and I'm going to try that one more time. I have an esteemed guest. His name is David Weatherly. He's an amazing magician. He's an author of many, many books. I have one of his books right here, and that's obviously going to be back to front, so I shall tell you. It's titled Strange Intruders. It's just one of the books. It's full of magical kind of like characters, and we will be going into it. He's also a magician, a storyteller. He does the bizarre as well as all sorts of strange things, and no other, and you can't get better than the man himself to explain to us what he does. I'm going to bring him in. It's not Jeff, it's David Webley, folks. And welcome to the show, David Webley. That's a little bit better, isn't it?
Mario, it's good to see you.
Hey, man. Yeah, no, it's just it's good to see you too. And let's try that again. What part of the world do you come from, David?
Florida.
Oh, no, man.
In the United States, yeah.
Cool. I mean, Dave, you've got a very interesting, background, and the more I look into it, the intrigue, and you live an extraordinary life of working with magic. You're a magician, a storyteller, an explorer, but not an ordinary explorer as such, but an explorer of the strange phenomena, ghosts, UFOs, and anything, I guess, abnormal or perhaps unexplained. Is that fair to say?
That's pretty fair to say. It really rooted in magic for me, and getting interested in magic was kind of oh gosh, this will sound bad. It was almost like a gateway drug, I guess, because there's, magic is such an intriguing thing that when I got interested in this was in the 1970s, I was interested in performance magic, but I also consistently stayed interested in real magic. So while I was learning things, that any magician of the time would have learned, silts and sponge balls and all those types of things, I was also very interested in various tribal traditions from around the world and the types of practices that they had, which really were forms of magic. So I pretty much pursued this my whole life. I've been very blessed to have met some amazing people, had some wonderful teachers from all spectrums. And hand in hand with that, I was always very intrigued by what then would have been termed the paranormal, which now that term has kind of been co-opted to just mean ghosts. But when you break the word down, it really means beyond the normal. So, all of these things sort of dovetail together for me because, I can remember I was fortunate. I had some time with Native American teachers when I was young. And I learned that the worldview that they present is one that allows magic and what we would deem the supernatural to exist in a different way. So, I think that I've always been able to sort of walk that line between two worlds, so to speak, and have been in a very, I guess, liminal state in a lot of ways. And, my early influences, I mean, were all things that even back then were unusual. So I was, I had a great love of the circus when I was young, performance magicians, ghost stories, and all of these things kind of wound together. I didn't start writing until much, much later in my life. And that was in part due to a magician that I met who was also a writer and wrote extensively on the paranormal. So, yeah.
Can I ask who would I know this magician? What magician you?
Have you've heard of the Mothman? Yes, the famous movie, The Mothman Prophecies, which was based on a book,
right?
And it's about a series of strange incidents that occurred in a place named Point Pleasant in West Virginia. The gentleman who wrote that book and researched, excuse me, and researched those incidents, his name was John Keel. And
Right.
John Keel was a writer. He wrote extensively within the realm of the paranormal, and he wrote a lot about UFOs and the supernatural and all these different
Right.
things. He was a popular writer for publications in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that centered on UFOs and things like that. Fate magazine, he was a writer for them. So Keel was an investigative journalist, is what he would have told you. But he was also a magician who was fascinated by magic. And the first book I read by him was a book called Jadoo. And a
Jadoo.
lot of Jadoo. And a lot of people, this book still flies under the radar. In fact, I tell everybody about it who's interested in magic and things like that, because Keel early on went to India in search of the Indian rope trick.
Oh, right. Wow.
Jadoo is sort of this travel log about his experiences searching for the rope trick, encountering all these other strange things in India. So it's a really fascinating book, and it certainly fueled my interest in sort of the combination of all of these things. They all just have consistently floated in my sphere of existence, I guess you would say. And there's so many curious things. Keel, I met Keel, and oh gosh, I think it was I want to say the late 90s. No, sorry, early 90s. I met Keel. I met him at a conference in Washington, D.C. And real character, great guy. I went and sat down and started talking to him, and he's doing card tricks. And I was like, what? And we started talking about magic, and it turned out he was a big, really loved magic and did a lot of magic himself. And he was so many weird connections. Keel, and I'm kind of jumping around here, but I find this fascinating. Keel lived in New York, and for a time he lived in a brownstone that had been the home of Walter Gibson, who, if you're a magician, you know that name. Walter Gibson was a magician. He was also a writer who, under the pen name Maxwell Grant, created The Shadow. Very early superhero who was an influence on the Batman and other characters later on. And The Shadow, the very origin of this character is that he journeys to the Far East and learns mystical powers, the ability to cloud men's minds and to disappear and all these strange things. So again, there's just all these things that for me have constantly swirled together in this fascinating combination that I just, keeps me completely intrigued even to this day.
Yeah. You also made me think of Alan Moore, which is a different kind. He's a magician, but a different kind of magician in that sense. Right. And who also had similar influences on the world of Batman and these Marvel characters. And this is something. Is this actually back to front to you? Is this?
I can read it. Promethea.
All right. Yeah. You've come across this? Promethea?
Oh yes, I've read Alan Moore's material.
Yeah, and this is one of 32 magazines that were put together, and it's really interesting in regards to the tarot because it unpacks the tarot as well as the Tree of Life, and it's a cartoon book, but it's also into the mind of Alan Moore, who's this esoteric practitioner of magic, who also influenced various, as I understand it, because Batman movies, right? Is
Alan Moore. I believe he refers to himself as a chaos magician, which is a form of magic, real magic, if you will. And I know that he has studied things like ceremonial magic, and we're talking real magic traditions as opposed to performance magic at this point. But more, he's a pretty fascinating character himself. Now, there's a kind of a tenuous, interesting connection between him and Keel, actually. So Keel, I don't know if you're familiar with the term tulpa or not. And this kind of goes down a really fascinating path, and you can stop me if you don't want to delve into this. So the concept of a tulpa comes out of Tibet.
Yeah, right.
And the idea is that a living entity can be completely created from starting with pure thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the origin of this goes back to a woman named Alexandra David Niel, who in the turn of the century went to Tibet. Now, this was a period when Tibet was a closed kingdom. It was the forbidden kingdom. No Westerners were allowed into the country, let alone a woman. But this fascinating woman was so interested in Buddhist and Tibetan traditions that she disguised herself as an Asian man and snuck into the country. Ended up getting time with these high lamas and learning just some incredible secrets. In the time that she was there, she had an experience which she documents in one of her books. It's called Magic and Mystery in Tibet. So there's an incident in this book that she recounts where she's at this camp and a man comes into the camp who's journeying through, and it's someone she has met before, but this time when he comes through, this man he looks like he's ill. He's very distraught. He's a nervous wreck. And the story that she finds out is that this gentleman is a painter and that he had become very obsessed with painting one particular figure over and over and over again. So much so that he manifested this entity into a living state. It became real. Right. Now, as a Westerner, Alexander David Niel was very skeptical about this. And she's like, how could this happen? How can this be done? So the monks explained to her that human consciousness was powerful enough that if a certain process was followed and something was focused on enough, it could be created into various stages. Now, it would begin as a thought and then become more of a thought form, and then it would begin to take on a tangible appearance. So it might appear first like a ghost or a spirit. And if the process is continued, it would eventually gain physical form, what appeared to be physical form. Well, Alexandra asked for the process and it was given to her. So she decided to do an experiment. She wanted to see if she could create what was termed a tulpa. Instead of, in order to kind of make it fair.
Toba. So I was going to stop you. How do you spell that? Toba. Is it Tobar or
Tulpa? Tulpa.
Tulpa. Tulpa. That helps. Thank you.
Tulpa. So she decided she didn't want to be influenced by her environment. Therefore, she would focus on a European figure that would never show up in Tibet. She began to focus on this jolly monk in robes, sort of a friar tux type of figure. Well, as she followed the process, she began to feel like someone was near her. She thought at first maybe imagine something, fleeting glimpses in the corner of her eye. Eventually, she saw a physical figure in the camp that fit the description of the monk that she was conjuring through this process.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, this was around a period when the camp was going to break and journey to another part of Tibet. So everyone packs up and they leave, and Alexandra is traveling with them. The monk goes as well. However, in the course of all of this, he begins to take on seemingly a more sinister energy, and she starts to become frightened of him. So she goes back to the monks and she says, I don't understand what's happening here. This entity seems to be becoming uh, very almost evil. So the monks explained to her, well, you have created a being into existence from energy, and it needs to feed on energy, and it will continue expanding and growing and become its own uh, its own being in a different way, but it's still going to need to draw energy somehow. So, being frightened, she asked for a process to sort of reverse all of this, and it was given to her. Now, kind of coming back full circle to what we were talking about with Keel and even Alan Moore, Keel reported when he was living in Gibson's brownstone that he would see a figure out of the corner of his eye around the brownstone that was a male figure with something over its face and a big slouched hat. Now, if you've ever seen depictions of the shadow, then you know this is what he was describing. So Keel felt like somehow the spirit of the shadow was in that brownstone. Now, if we look at Gibson's record as Maxwell Grant, he wrote something like, I'm not sure I remember the figure. It's somewhere in the range of 50,000 words a month or every 2 weeks. He was incredibly prolific. And if you look at all the shadow novels, he was cranking those out like twice a month, a novel length stories. So this man, you know, he spent an incredible amount of time sitting back then at what would have been a typewriter, you know, imagining stories of this figure that he had created.
Yeah.
The Alan Moore connection is that Alan Moore is the co-creator of a character named Constantine, who is a magician.
Mm-hmm.
He starred under a series called Hellblazer for a long time. He's a British, very cantankerous magician. Moore claims to have seen a tulpa of Constantine in a London coffee shop. So, you know, you've got all these cases of these people involved in magic in some degree or other who are talking about entities that are conjured from pure thought. And I will say that skeptical people, there's plenty of skeptical magicians, you know that. They're all going to say, oh, this is all nonsense, this is imagination or whatnot. One of the things I find fascinating about phenomena like this is that we've come to a point in our society where science has come full circle and has gone into spirituality. That's what quantum science is. You know, I've talked to a lot of quantum scientists, and, you know, some of them have told me that they felt like as scientists, they had reached an endpoint and had to go somewhere else. And it's led to a lot of breakthroughs. A lot of it is theoretical right now, but we're getting into territory where I believe that quantum science is going to start proving a lot of different things about energy and even the human consciousness and our thought process and everything else that are going to seem supernatural or magical initially, but there's an explanation.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's my long-winded answer to your question, I think.
No, it's great. I mean, and this is one of those common, I say common, but what you've described as well is really common across the practice of magic as I know it, and that manifestations starts within the thought process that we have in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
That created always starts with an idea. Everything which is manifested perhaps starts with an idea. And there is a beautiful story that lends itself really well to this of that I've heard shared orally and it's someone visiting this huge factory. Have I ever shared that with you?
No, I don't think so.
In brief, large factory, and in this factory is huge. It's so big that everything that has ever been created is actually in this factory. It's all there, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all there. And when you enter into this factory, this showroom, it's like this huge showcase of everything. It's been stewarded, if you like, by people wearing these white suits. They're all shuffling around, but everything's there from cutlery to tables to the good, the bad, the ugly, and it's all there, everything you can imagine. And of course, you go to the back of the room, and there's an elevator taking you to the next level. You go up to the next level; it's somewhat different. And there you have a lot of people in work clothes, and they're covered in oil and grease, and they're producing, they're carving, they're producing, and the carpenters, and the mechanics, the electricians, the scientists, and what have you. And then, there's less people on the ground, but the variety in people is far more diverse. And then you go back into the elevator, go to the next room, you go up to the next room, and there you have all these drawing pads. You have sketch pads. You have vision boards. You have architect tables. You have all sorts of different. I write a lot in notepads like this. I got my travel version of all my ideas, and they end up in these notepads, and I've got piles of them up there. Some people call them the Book of Shadows. Call it what you wish, if it's helpful. But then you go into the final room, you go into the elevator, you go to the final floor to round that story up, and you go up, and it opens up, and there you are, greeted by this wall of steam, and everything's white, and everything's just steam, like a big cloud. You've entered into a cloud. And you walk around this room. You can't see anything beyond your hand. It's just full of steam. And then you hear someone whistling, and they're just whistling, and then you see the outline of a person wearing a bath towel. Of course, you're in the bathroom, and this person is drawing his idea, this inspired idea that he's had, on the mirror. And it's the whole process, if you like, the whole process of manifestation there, from the idea working us all the way down to what we speak and what we say literally does manifest itself into reality. So we have a world full of evidence that this stuff works. It literally does. And I find that, but it's a common, we draw that into our own practice at Magic Wizardry, where we have, we're sharing that concept, a wish. What we state happens, WISH, what is stated happens. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. And I also noted that you were talking about shadows in your book, and strange intruders. There's, would I be right in saying, from the shadows? That's about the shadow people, right? Is that a reference directly to what you're referring to tonight?
Not to tulpas specifically, no. But some people think perhaps that could be what that is. This kind of gets into different territory. Shadow people have been reported all over the world. Various cultures talk about them, and they all have different explanations. And this is a phenomena that almost always these things are negative in nature. They seem to be negative in nature. So, without going into a great deal of without expounding on this a whole lot, I'll just say briefly that when we use the term shadow person, it is referring to a report that someone has encountered what appears to be a living shadow, a figure that is completely black, that has no clear features, but moves around of its own accord, not as a shadow would. And the accounts are typically very terrifying for people. They feel, they feel threatened, they feel frightened. Some people have had very terrifying encounters with these things. And depending on the culture that you go to look for an explanation, you'll hear anywhere from, oh, these are manifestations of spirits or ghosts. Others think that they're what we might term concentrated fear. So much anxiety is built up. Now, scientists would argue maybe that's a hallucination. But if it's something that intense and the person is experiencing it as a real thing, then for them, it's irrelevant whether it's a hallucination or not. They just want a solution to stop having these experiences. So they're very weird accounts. And like I said, they can be found all over the world with different explanations for them.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce here is said something quite interesting. The tulpa reminds me of the golem. But the tulpa was created in the mind, and the golem was created from clay. Both were brought to reality by man. And there's what's the word? A lot of truth in that.
Yeah. Some similarities, a different magical process, though. The golem was seen as a defender, and there was it comes from Jewish lore, and there's a whole process that was used to essentially charge this this figure that was created out of clay in order to empower it to be a protector. And yeah, fascinating stories, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've been drawn into this incredible world of the paranormal, seeking it out, UFOs, ghosts, the tulpa, your spiritual path, magic, storytelling, and have you, in your experiences, well, I guess the question would be, at what stage are you a believer of these things? Do you believe in the spiritual side of this realm, or is it are you investigating paranormal experiences? And was there a time where you, if you like, crossed over into a belief, where you actually had an experience that there's a number of questions there, but where you actually had an experience that actually convinced you of, or not? Is that a fair question?
It's a fair question. It's the answer is probably very complex. I found that when I was young and got interested in magic in the 70s, a lot of the people that were kind of early influences, I guess they were a bit more open-minded about a lot of these things. And I know that there's so much skepticism in magic now, and there's kind of a good reason for that, because there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of phony psychics. There's a lot of fraudulent things that make their way into the world of performance magic. And when you see a lot of the big scandals that have happened over the years, with various psychics in particular, have been a big thing. You got people like Sylvia Brown, there were terrible scandals around this woman, and some of these people who claim this outrageous psychic ability. So, it's kind of a shame that there's been so much of that, and that magicians, to a certain degree, have, and I'm not speaking for every magician. I'm just saying there's a large contingency of magicians who feel called to be skeptics and to, bust phony psychics. And this tradition goes way back to Houdini, right? Because
Yeah.
he was, chasing around the mediums and busting the fraudulent ones. I think that one thing people forget is that Houdini was originally interested because, he was looking for evidence of the afterlife to see if he could contact his mother. So, I would argue that Houdini was initially probably open-minded. I don't know if anybody can fully answer that question, because he became in some ways a very, almost an angry skeptic, because of finding so much fraud amongst these mediums and, consistently busting all these things that they were doing. But, I think that on another level, it's a bit too bad that magicians, in some ways, I think have some of them have lost their sense of wonder. As magicians, we get so fixated on understanding how the trick is done that, you can get conditioned to always look for the trick. So, yeah, I mean, I've had very interesting experiences often in other countries with other cultures and other traditions. And, it's hard to I don't completely discount everything. As I said earlier, I think that quantum science is going to end up proving a lot of things that, could be viewed as supernatural or paranormal. So we're kind of coming full circle in a sense.
Yeah. We
just got a comment posted that the magic circle involves research into the occult. Yeah, I think that is correct. And it's, that's always, it's always good to see magicians who are open-minded, who are interested in researching this thing. Some of them are much more adamant about just, busting the frauds as opposed to looking for the wonder, I suppose.
And this is one of those fine lines, right? It's where magic becomes. So one of the things I love about magic is creating a deeper meaning with it, creating a transformational moment in someone's life through the means of entertainment. And largely we're there to engage with entertainment, and but in the same breath, we can empower our audiences, the people that watch us, to see beyond the limits of everyday life, the restrictions of life, and begin to wonder, dream, and inspire. I've got an effect, David, with me, and I did with me that I wonder if I should dare to share it as if you like, as an experiment. It lends itself to the evening, and
by all means,
by in part, and the magicians and monsters may recognize it. And this, I need to get into view. There we have it. And this is involves basically 3 skulls. And if I'm going to go, David, I'm going to ask you, and let's see if this works. Does that help? You can still see these skulls. And I mean, I got a red skull, I got a white skull, I got a blue skull. But there's and of course I got this spike. And also the tomb. This is a little story, if you, and it lends itself to monks, and because this story lends itself locally here, Glastonbury. We have this pub called the George and Pilgrim. The George and Pilgrim is southwest England's oldest pub, so it's ancient in days, and it's a remarkable place. This is a place where you do get all sorts of shenanigans taking place, or reports of things going bumping in the night, stories and tales. One of the tales is of a ghost, and I'd really like to know your thoughts on what a ghost is, David. But this ghost was a lady, and she was represented in white. She was always dressed in white, and it's told that she's often walking through the chambers of the Georgian pilgrim, and so the tale goes. And there was directly opposite there is a abbey that was burnt down and destroyed, and there was a great carnage. A lot of the monks that were practitioners there were executed, murdered. But before this was, it was said that there was a lover full of passion, full of love for this woman, and secretly they were having an affair. What makes the Georgian pilgrim quite a remarkable place? There was a tunnel that once joined the Georgian pilgrim and the abbey. You can actually enter. And when I've been down in that cellar, and I could see it's now filled, and is with the high street that runs between the two places. So you have this this lover, and you also had the jealous barman, he was saddened, and he was and vengeful. So he was deeply blue. And but for this experiment, the tale unfolds. But David, I'm going to ask you to. You can see that. Can you see those colors right there? I'm going to ask you to choose a color. Choose one of those colors.
Let's go with the red.
Go with the red. Interesting. And I place that right there on the spike. In reality, the barman, full of envy, full of anger, full of sadness, reported that the monk was indeed having an affair with the lady who now haunts the Georgian pilgrim. And as a result, the monk lost his life. He was executed, and there was reports that he was actually tombed in the cellar underneath the grounds of the Georgian pilgrim. But what's in particular telling is right here in this box is your choice, and we have in there is a duplicate.
Very nice.
And I don't like explaining things, so just let it speak for itself.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful effect. And there's an element of truth in this story, in this tale. I.e., there's lots of tales of these monks who were executed. The abbey is indeed destroyed. Lovers were reported. And so when it comes down to ghosts, because I know you've done a fair bit of study into ghosts, what is a ghost to you? I mean, is it a recorded episode? Is it or is it an actual phenomena, or is it just a figure of our imagination? What's going on? What do you think it is, David?
Oh, I think all of those are potential explanations, because the thing is, ghost stories are they're global. You can go to any culture, anywhere in the world, and you're going to find some versions of ghost stories. And this goes to probably the greatest mystery of the world for people, is what happens after death, right? Is there something more? Where do people go? Where does the spirit go? So when we start looking at these stories, you find, first of all, a lot of different themes. You mentioned a couple themes yourself there. You can find stories of vengeful ghosts, of remorseful ghosts, all these different things. And of course, when we look at contemporary stories, we find accounts of people, swearing that uh, their deceased relative has appeared to them, and so forth. Not long after the death, sometimes immediately after. And I think that a lot of people who have researched this, they're looking for one explanation, but the phenomena is more complex than that, because there are plenty of cases where you can look at the accounts, you can speak with the people, and you can determine nothing really happened here. It's either the person is in a state of fear, or there's hype about different things. I know in the United States, particularly in the past, I will say 20 years, it's been much more pronounced, simply because all of the reality television shows focused around ghost and ghost hunting have changed the dynamic. And people now, they're constantly talking about, more people are willing to talk about ghost stories. They believe their house is haunted. They believe all these different things. And in some cases, it is, unfortunately, they're misinterpreting noises, they're misinterpreting experiences, and so forth. Now, that's only one component, because there are other cases where you can argue something very curious happened here, and no one can explain what has occurred. And some of the cases are just confounding. There's a there's a place in Louisiana. It's actually an old plantation, and this sort of gets into tulpa territory again, but I won't even go into that aspect of the story. There's an account from this plantation about the spirit of this one particular woman who's said to be there. In the I think it was the 70s, a photograph was captured, and this woman appears in the photograph, and there are no known existing photographs of this woman prior to this ghost image being captured. The photograph has been examined thoroughly by numerous experts, and no one can find anything fraudulent with this photograph. So, you have to question some of these cases and wonder, all right, well, how did this manifest? How did this happen exactly? There are other cases when, people have experiences, and they're completely rational people. I know, I won't mention their names, but I know a couple of diehard skeptics, previously diehard skeptics, who ended up having an experience that they just could not find an explanation for. No matter how hard they tried to explain it away with different things, there's no explanation for it. So, this is something, again, I think that we're going to start getting more answers as science advances into the quantum field, because there's a long held theory about recordings, as you referenced, Mario. This idea that a particularly traumatic event can leave an impression somehow. Now, that's sometimes called the stone tape theory. It's the idea is that the event is so emotionally charged that it is the memory of the event is sort of held in the stone, or the crystals within the stone, or whatever, and certain things can trigger that to play back. And I think that's a very compelling theory that, we may be able to find some answers when we start looking at those things. And then there's the psychological aspect. I think in some cases that, someone, if they want so badly to speak to their deceased grandmother, then somehow they may have that experience. That's their experience. And I don't know how we as outsiders can really judge that. Or even if we should.
I've got if you like, a test case for you. I'm going to run by, if I may, I'm going to run it by you. Then I'm going to open it up to the floor, the viewers that to perhaps ask you questions. And we are
Hmm.
rapidly out of time, but it's riveting for me, listening to what you're sharing, what you're bringing. I, as a practitioner, performer, magician, and also an esoteric practitioner who loves to create positive experiences for people, I've also created a bazaar show. I've had a bazaar show where I'm performing bizarre magic, and I've also created paranormal theatre for entertainment purposes. But way before any of this happened years ago, I experimented while I was traveling in the Far East, and I became a manager of a youth hostel, and I ended up hosting. This is literally pre-days. I was, before I became a professional magician, I ended up hosting Ouija boards. Well, actually, what do we call it? Um, Literally, when you're using a glass, and it's similar to that of an Ouija board, but you've got the alphabet all laid out. You've got your yes and no, and you're using a glass as your tumbler. And we had these very deep, because this was quite regular, we had these really deep experiences and encounters and messages that come through. And in particular, there was one that we used to do this, and in this youth hostel late at night. And what occurred was we ended up having a series of numbers that were consistent, that kept on coming through. And they were the same numbers that happened night after night after night every time we met. These numbers, and we couldn't work it out. Until one night we decided, let's really cross-examine what's going on here. Why are these numbers coming up? We became really, really curious. And I will say at the time, this is the last one I did because it terrified me at the time. And the scenario was very much like that. We narrowed it down that this number was coming up was actually indeed a serial number. And then it got chilling when we realized that the message was very much, it was a serial number to a life support machine that existed in a hospital. And this is when it got chilling. And the story unfolded that the spirit that we were contacted was now trapped in this life support machine, and it wanted one of the individuals who were there to switch off the machine, to vindicate. That was the word that kept on coming out. And the research I did behind that was enough to find out the hospital did actually exist. That's as far as I went. And bear in mind, I'm a foreigner in a foreign country. And, so I had no idea of the hospital. You couldn't make this stuff up, if you like.
Right.
Now, as a magician, as a trained magician, I can look at that from a point of speculation. I can be my own great skeptic behind it. But yet, the information behind it, all I know is that we all became terrified. And that was the last time I did. I held an Ouija, if you like. It was more glass, I guess. In that setting, I revisited it years later when I become. But compared to in my mind at that time, because I was not providing this as a form of entertainment, I was truly experimenting and very open.
Right.
And of course, I wasn't as terrified it was. You can imagine being the person who received this message, that they're the ones who had to pull the plug. That was you can't make this stuff up as such. Well, that's arguable. What do you think of that?
That's a fascinating story. Obviously, it's
yeah.
yeah. But again, I mean, that's a mystery that, you may never have an answer to.
No, I guess not. I mean, yeah, I do wonder back now. If I think as a magician, I wonder, was there someone on that table who was in the know? Was there someone who actually was local? I can't quite remember. I'm pretty sure we're all travelers of some sort. Was it just a huge coincidence? Did we just fool ourselves in our own minds? Is it all real? Or were we really having this true encounter? And was it a spirit realm, which was so many questions
Yeah.
that get triggered around that? Of
Yeah.
course, critical thinking is vital. I'm going to open up this to the to our guests. We got if you've got some questions for David or ourselves, please do. Hopefully you've got some questions right there. But I've got we're and do share. But in the meantime, David, do you perform bizarre magic?
I do some, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah, I just, in fact, last month I was out at the Seance Summit in Las Vegas. Jeff McBride's he's still a teacher to me. He's a big influence, and I've known Jeff since the early '90s, and he's just, I mean, he's an incredible magician and someone I think who has really served the community well in a lot of ways, and kind of understands ritual theater. And the ritual aspects of magic and how to incorporate those into performance magic. So yes, but to answer your question, I do bizarre magic. I do a variety of different things, and kind of gearing up for a new seance style show, hopefully this fall.
Right. I mean, going back to Jeff, it was Jeff who actually recommended to me to read Promethea on the basis that we were talking around the tarot and we were talking about what a tip. What a tip. I mean, you're getting one of these copies. This is not an original copy. This is but getting the original copies, if you were to get all 32 of them, they're worth a small fortune, the original copies these days, because they're very hard to come by. And we got a question right here from Jeff here in Washington. And yeah, David, have you ever been to Winchester Mystery House in California or the Coral Castle in Florida? And did you like there was something paranormal going on?
I've been to both of those locations. The Coral Castle is kind of fascinating. There's a lot of mysteries about how it was built, and supposedly he took the secret to the grave with him. The Winchester Mystery House is, wow, you can get a lot of different impressions from that location. I mean, to some degree, you walk around it and it's like it was built by a complete madman or madwoman in this case. The story of the Winchester House, I don't know if everyone knows this or not, but the house was built really because of guidance from a spiritualist. The heir to the Winchester rifle fortune was she believed that she was being plagued by the spirits of people killed by Winchester rifles. And she was told by a spiritualist that the only way to quiet the spirits was to keep building so that she couldn't be disturbed by them. So her whole life, she paid people to do construction on the house 24/7. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there was something being done to the house, and she didn't care what it was. As a result, you have stairs that go to nowhere. You have windows that open into other rooms. I mean, it's very, very intense, very strange.
Well, we got time for one more question right here, and this is from Bruce Lish. and it's a great question. How do you present yourself to your audience? Outright deny paranormal ability, or leave it up to your audience? Or may I add, do you believe there's a paranormal side to your performance? Would you?
Well, I pretty much take the Eugene Berger approach. And he once said, why is it even a topic? You're doing a performance. That in itself is a disclaimer. The difference being, I suppose, is if you advertised, oh, come to this, I'm going to do a seance. We're going to contact the dead. Then you're implying, oh, this is something real. We're really going to get in touch with your grandmother or whatnot. But if you say we're doing a theatrical seance, that is more or less your disclaimer right there.
Yes, I believe in his book Spirit Theater, Eugene Berger. This is in this very book. It's brilliant, and it's a lovely part. It's one of those things when you read his work, it's like you can hear his voice. He literally he writes the way he spoke. You can hear his voice if you knew him. And I remember talking about Eugene about this. So he signed it for me. But that was that even if you were to tell people that this is not real, they will still conclude and make up their own minds if it's real or not. And
they absolutely will.
Ultimately. And
I remember talking. I remember talking to Eugene about the exact same thing. And, it just, I'm sure you're familiar with Anthony Heads, who just wrote an incredible book on, this practical performance. This is an amazing book. And it's probably the best thing in that spectrum since Spirit Theater. But he talks about that. He says that you can give all the disclaimers, you can tell people, and they're still going to approach you, and they're going to say, I know you said it was theater, and I know what you said, but can you just tell me how to get in touch with my deceased grandfather, or can you just answer this question? And those are the things you have to be prepared for if you're doing.
What was the name of that book again? Sorry, David. What was the name of the book?
It's called Practical Paranormal Performance. Anthony Heads.
Yeah, performance. I'm wondering, Tom, do you have a copy of that? If anybody does, he will. David, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed this interview with you. I've got lovely Veronica's just literally just saying, and it's so true. And well, the first part, where's the best place to find this book? All right, let's note that I wanted what she said beforehand. Where is it? Sorry, I'm going to show you this. David, you are a fascinating wealth of stories and experiences. Thank you for sharing. And very much from the bottom of my heart, David, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's been really wonderful having you on the show. And I look forward to catching up with you sooner. And I'm going to bring the show to an end. Thank you, guests, visitors, viewers, for watching us. And do follow us on Magic Wizardry and Mario Morris Magic YouTube. David, last thing right here, where can we find your work? What is your website, and how can we access your books?
Oh, you can. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook under my name. I'm on Instagram, David Weatherly Magic. The books are on Amazon. All the stuff that's in print. Anyway, I've written about 60 books total. There's probably around a dozen or so that are out of print currently. But the rest of the stuff is on Amazon. A lot of it's on Kindle. Strange Intruders, yeah.
And this is a great read. Yeah.
Yeah. So keep up with me on Instagram and social media, and yeah, I'd love to hear from people.
Hey, David, thank you very much, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you.